Justice Thomas. Anything further?
Would your case be any different, or your argument be any stronger, if we were talking about real estate rather than owning stocks in a corporation or an interest in a corporation?
No, Your Honor. Pretty much all of the Court's 16th Amendment cases over the course of the last century have concerned personal property in the form of investments. I think it's well established at this time that taxes on personal property...
well, actually, what I'm more interested in is not necessarily a distinction between real and personal property, but rather having an investment in a corporate form or a partnership where you can actually... There is an argument that the income had been realized by the corporation, or income had been realized, as you've heard this morning, by the partnership, and whether or not that should then be attributed to those who invest in those companies. Whereas in real estate, unless there is a transaction, a sale or lease or something, there's no taxable transaction. So would there be a difference between a stake in a corporation or partnership as opposed to real estate or other personal property?
I don't think so. I mean, the Court has applied the same principles across the sweep of its 16th Amendment cases. Pretty much all of the early ones, applying the principle that we put forward, did involve corporate investments and different types of corporate reorganizations that the government argued resulted in income to the shareholders. But the Court applied the same principles in cases like Brunn, for example, that involved real property, and recognized that in that instance there equally had to be realization. Likewise, in Blatt, the Court reached the opposite result in Brunn, with respect to an improvement made to real property. So we don't think the constitutional principles are any different. I think the only difference, perhaps, with respect to corporate shares is that the government might have an argument that there is some type of constructive realization under the statute that imposes the tax.
But isn't that just based on the questions this morning, that seemed to be a vulnerability that you would not have with real property, for instance?
I don't think it's a vulnerability given the general principle that's required and given the nature of this tax. I think it would be a more difficult case if this tax were structured in an entirely different fashion that didn't operate in the way that it does, but that's obviously a hypothetical that's not before the Court.